So I'm Rachel. I also run the Censored meetup, Censored with an S. We meet periodically to talk about censored devices and applications. We'll have another one coming up. We had a little bit of a break over the summer. I also am a data scientist at Misfit Wearables. Misfit makes elegant wearable technology. And today, I'm not going to talk about what Misfit makes, but rather I'm going to talk about a slightly bigger picture thing, which is what we're all building together. So I'd like you all to reach under your seats or into your pocket. I've placed an invisible pair of X-ray goggles there. So if you could pull them out and put them on, they're a little bit delicate. Can I see you guys putting them on? Remember me? OK. So these X-ray goggles allow you to see the invisible. Of course, they're X-ray goggles. This is not the X-ray goggles that you thought about when you were a teenager. They don't actually allow you to see people's underwear. Sorry. You can put your phones on silent, too. So what they do allow you to do is a way geekier version of the X-ray goggles, which is they allow you to see data. Come on, you guys are excited about data, right? So these goggles allow you to see data being transmitted between devices and phones and computers and laptops and everything in our world that uses data. And this is pretty exciting for geeks like me and us, but it's not actually about the data. What we want to see is the data, but that's not the goal. The real goal is about understanding. So we want to see this data because it gives us insight into what's actually going on. For instance, we can use things like metadata about pictures people take in San Francisco to figure out where locals take pictures versus where tourists take pictures. And getting this kind of data allows us to build up predictive models and understanding of the physical world around us and of our own interactions. And so that's one of the things that we want data for, is to better understand the world and model behavior. It also allows us to do something else really cool, which is allows us to communicate with objects. We want to be able to talk to the devices around us. And with data, we can do that. Now, one small hitch is that as humans, the state of our biological hardware is kind of lagging behind smartphone technology, and we don't yet have good ways to hack into our biological wetware. And so for now, we can do the next best thing, and we can wear devices that we know we can communicate with. So wearables turn humans into connected devices, too. So what's new here is not necessarily that we have things that we can wear or things that can track us, but it's how easily these devices can communicate with each other and communicate with us. So tracking and wearables are not new. One of the fundamental units of measure is weight. We've had scales, and we've been able to measure weight for thousands of years. And this kind of technology, this tracking device, almost all of us have these in our homes. This is not something that's new. Even wearable computing isn't new. The original wearable computing was an abacus ring that allowed you to do computations and have those answers at your fingertips. And there have been many niche applications of wearable computing, and some of them have even gone mainstream. Raise your hand if you had a calculator watch. Yeah, so that's wearable computing. Allows you to do some basic math. It's not as cool as a TI-85, but it'll allow you to do some things, and it's on your wrist. So that's about computing. We've also had the ability to do kind of tracking of our activity for a long time. There are pedometers that existed before the year 1900. One of the first patents for a pedometer was filed in 1877. It's totally mechanical. You don't have to worry about battery life. You never have to charge it. Minor minus is it doesn't integrate with iPhone or Android. But we've had wearable tracking. In the 60s and 70s, groups of people came out with casino shoes that would track the timing of the roulette ball and allow you to cheat at roulette, which thankfully for the casino business never became mainstream, although this was definitely an example of wearable computing. doing something useful for us. And so around that same time, we had the first telemetric cardiac monitoring. The Holter monitor was invented in 1949, which allowed you to measure cardiac activity. Clinical use started in the 60s, and this is still the same technology that's used today. Although a lot of us have smartphone-enabled cardiac monitors, and there are new devices that use Bluetooth Low Energy, et cetera, this is still the status quo. So these kinds of wearables have had niche applications, but they're not something that's just happening now. And similarly, tracking isn't new. We've had ability to track our activity collectively for a really long time. For instance, credit cards. So in exchange for security and convenience, we give up a lot of data about our spending patterns. And with internet-connected personal computers, we generate a lot of data exhaust. And that's a rich data set for all sorts of tracking as well. When smartphones came out, or GPS-enabled phones, we realized that they were tracking us too. The iPhone leak came out in, I think, 2011, and we realized that our phones were storing a lot of information about where we were. So our phones are listening. So this is tracking in virtual worlds. This is tracking online. But tracking is now coming to the physical world as our devices all become connected as well. And so not only do we have tracking in kind of niche applications, our browsers, our phones, but we have tracking on city level where we can track where public transportation is, we can track traffic patterns, we can track parking spaces, we can track crime. And it's also coming into our house, allowing us to figure out whether the dog has been fed, whether people are sleeping, and whether we should turn off the lights. All of these things are coming into our physical worlds as well. This company, Sense, has a product called Mother. She's like your mom, only better. It's kind of a bold statement for a tech company. You might not be able to see this down here, but it says, Mother knows everything. So this device sits in your house, and you put cookies on different objects, and Mother tracks how you use those objects. And, you know, I get the idea. It's nice to know that somebody is looking out for you. But this is also a little bit creepy. I trust my own mother to make the right decisions for me, but I'm not sure that I trust a tech company to have a benevolent mother. Like, does this mother really have your best interest in mind? Like, what if your devices turn against you? This is becoming more and more of a realism in this internet-connected physical world. I don't know if any of you guys ever read the book Lazy Tommy Pumpkinhead. If you haven't, I would put it on your reading list. It's about home automation gone terribly wrong. So we have all of these conveniences, but we also have a lot of real issues that we collectively need to figure out. And you know, ready or not, the cork is out of the bottle. It's only a matter of time before we have this technology everywhere. And it's up to us to figure out how to deal with these issues. We have an explosion of wearables and connected devices. We can do everything from have our print the weather on our toast to have our refrigerators tweet at us. There are so many things that we can do. Everything is becoming connected. It's giving us access to data we've never had access to before, which is exciting, but we, as a community, with these X-ray goggles that we have, it's our responsibility and our opportunity to figure out how to use this data to build the kind of enchanted, magical worlds that we want to live in. Thanks.
I was asked to talk about the future of virtual reality. And I don't know whose idea it was, but they're pretty good because we're actually right in the middle of it. They say that right now input is the missing link in virtual reality. It's really actually, in our opinion, the missing link in a lot of things. But particularly in virtual reality, we've had a lot of people coming to us lately. I would say almost everyone, and so we are involved. We get to hear a lot of thoughts. And what we find is that not necessarily everyone knows what's going on, but everybody knows a little piece of it. And so together we've been sort of piecing things together in our own minds. And I've been actually wanting to express that more often so that people have some idea of what's coming. And actually recently put this together, and you guys will be one of the only ones to have seen it, but there's a lot of good info in here. So to some extent I have to be limited to what I can say because I'm not really allowed to say anything, but I will show you things that are publicly available and things that I scraped off the internet that maybe shouldn't have been there, but it's on the internet, so no one can tell me I can't post it. Yeah, and then there's another quick thing is, so like, basically what I'm going to talk about is, I'm going to talk about the future of wearable displays, I'm going to talk about the future of wearable sensors, and I'm going to talk about what we Leap Motion are doing today and what you can do now. I want to give like a really quick disclaimer about saying that any time talking about the future, if I have any hope of being correct, I have to sound a little bit crazy. Because if anybody came back in time and said that, we were all going to have like super powerful computers that we would walk around with, but we wouldn't use them for anything other than like a newspaper or like a 90s era phone or a notepad, people would think we were kind of crazy. That's how it is. So I'm going to similarly maybe sound a little bit crazy on occasion now, and just had an Arthur C. Clarke quote basically said the same thing. People have been saying that for a while. In order to do this, I also have to kind of split virtual reality into like categories and put organization where there really isn't any. So I'm going to kind of divide it into 3 generations, and no one has done that before. So it's a little and some people might be some people are stuck between generations, but this is kind of how we see it falling. What you guys are probably aware of right now are these sort of what we call Generation 1 virtual reality displays, sort of like the Oculus Rift or the Sony Morpheus that they're making for PlayStation. And you can pretty much recognize them because they're sort of tethered experiences. They're large form factors. They're multi-device products. So for the Sony one, you have a camera, and then you have remote control, things that look like this, actually. And you also have something on your face, and then you have the PlayStation. So there's like 4 or 5 different components to the whole product. And then they're pretty much based off of 2010 era, 10s era smartphone technology and sort of input-output conventions. And then optics are pretty much from the 80s. The advantage is that pretty much any computing device can become a virtual reality mounted display, and that's insofar that they're basically just screens and you can plug them in and you get that. So we're already starting to see them fast. There's a wild card to it in that we don't really know how much these things are going to cost. Amazon's selling a tablet for $99, so it's very possible wearable displays could be unfathomably low cost very soon. And we're pretty much already seeing them now. I'm going to talk about Generation 1 sensors. So with virtual reality in particular, you're going to see wheels, joysticks, keyboards, mice, etc. And you're going to see these handheld controllers that are going to get more refined. The touchless motion controllers, which I'm going to show you a demo of actually I can't show you a demo. Different laptop, but maybe I'll pull up a video, are going to basically undergo rapid evolution. So Kinect, Leap Motion, the PlayStation 4 has a camera. The Oculus thing tracks your head. There's a lot of really interesting stuff there. And basically it's, the limitations here are pretty much the bandwidth, cost, power, size, and portability of all these solutions. But again, everything's off the shelf, so we are kind of starting off with something interesting. So we just, Leap Motion as a company recently announced, we basically make this thing, as Elizabeth was saying. It's a little sensor, and it tracks your hands and fingers. And then we release this mount, which allows you to put it onto a VR headset. And basically what that does is, you may not be able to see it here, this is sort of the field of view you get looking out of a head-mount display, and this is sort of the field of view that our